6:02. It's January 28th. I'm glad I clicked into the screen because I wasn't looking at the right screen and might have accidentally gone live while I was sitting here trying to copy paste some stuff, but got there just in time to see our great new producer, Jacob, who's doing a killer job getting us set up behind the scenes, giving me the cue that we are now live. I'm joined here by Matt LaMarca. Matt's going to do a lot of the talking on this show because, well, frankly, I've got a lot of work to do on some of these lineups that I was building because we just had a couple big bombs dropped on this slate. We're brought to you by PrizePicks today, our great presenting sponsor. We'll talk a little bit about them in a little bit. We'll talk a little bit about a great offer from BetMGM, all kinds of good stuff. Hit the like and the subscribe button for everything going on over here at Stokastic that you love. But let's say hi to Matt first. Matt, how's your Saturday going, buddy?
Pretty good so far. We got a nice little duel there between Joel Embiid and Nikola Jokic earlier today. Yeah. I watched a little Caitlin Clark over at Iowa, one of my favorite basketball players to watch right now. Just such a stud. So yeah,
sounds like a good little Saturday.
Yeah, full fix of hoops, and we still got the whole main slate to go.
Yeah, not bad. You had a good little Saturday, and now the NBA is going to come along and screw it all up because we just had, like I said, some crazy news. I was going to tee up this show as we were coming in, like, hey, kind of an easy, calm kind of a day, a lot of known unknowns. We know where the pitfalls are, and then we just had Alperen Sengun drop down to a questionable tag with an illness. Seems likely that he's not going to go. Late afternoon downgrade, and then we had Robert Williams scratched. So two key pieces of this slate in the same position. Power forward center type guys. What's the immediate impact just from the 50,000 foot overview of what this is going to do to our slate with those two guys coming out? And, since it's in that first game, we're going to kind of go start game by game ish, but I think we're going to bounce around a lot on this show. So since that Sengun injury is in the first game, why don't you just lead us like from 50,000 feet right into that Rockets analysis and just tell us what's going to happen downstream if he doesn't play?
Yeah, I mean, the Sengun thing is such a big deal. He was looking like, the chalk stud on this slate. He's already been putting up huge numbers. Now you take Jalen Green out of the equation in addition to Kevin Porter Jr. I'm with you where I kind of think they're not going to play him because why would they, right? Like, this is a big game for tanking purposes. We've got two of the worst teams in the league. A loss here for both is a good thing. So I'm tentatively expecting him to sit at this point. And if that's ultimately the case, I think that the rest of the Rockets roster gets a very sizable boost in value. Eric Gordon was somebody that I already really liked at 4,500. He's seen big boosts to his usage rate and his assist rate with KPJ and Jalen Green off the floor. So I think he gets even a further boost now if Sengun sits. Dacian Nix as a min-priced point guard, I think, you can go to him. He didn't really excel in his last start. He had 5.25 fantasy points in 35 minutes and change.
Ooh, that's hard to do. Yeah. It is hard to fill that.
I think I might be able to rack up more at this point. Just leave me alone in the corner. I'll knock down a couple threes, but regardless, it's hard to pass up a min-priced point guard who now could see, again, 30-plus minutes. Tari Eason is always one of my favorite players in DFS. He has just such a fantasy-friendly skill set. He's out there just hunting points and rebounds. 1.06 DraftKings points per minute over the past month. Now he potentially sees a boost in minutes. So these were all guys that I thought were playable with Sengun. So now without Sengun, it kind of becomes a value palooza in Houston.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there is just value everywhere to be found if we're assuming that he doesn't go. Right now, he's still in our projection. So if you're looking at some of the numbers, people out there, keep in mind that he's most likely going to drop off that board and we're going to see some changes there. But it just makes everybody who was already looking good, like you said, just look that much more interesting. And I'm with you on all those pieces that you named. Was Bruno Fernando in that mix? Because he was somebody that was coming up a little bit in chat as like a guy who might see some of those big man minutes. And you're getting him 3,700 power forward center on FanDuel, 3,100 center only on DK. Right now, he's not showing any value because we're not throwing him any minutes yet.
Right.
Do you expect minutes to go his direction if Sengun scratches? And would he show any value for you?
Yeah, he would enter the mix. I don't think he would become like a priority play for me. Center on this slate is already kind of crazy deep.
Yeah.
especially from a value perspective. So, he would be yet another name to put into that mix. But if Şengün is ruled out, then, I would say he and Usman Garuba probably split most of the center minutes. Maybe Jabari Smith Jr. picks up a couple of center minutes. Same thing with Tari Eason, Jayshawn Tate. Maybe they see a few extra minutes in place of Smith if he slides down. So there are a lot of moving parts. I don't think that any one guy in their front court becomes like a 30-minute type player if Şengün gets ruled out, but I think all of them collectively might see an extra few minutes here and there.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. And I think it does make sense to focus around those keys that you talked about there with, the Easons, the Eric Gordons, and so on and so forth of the world, KJ Martin, certainly Jabari, because it's not going to necessarily be a case like if they could just go positionless, right? They don't have to say, hey, we need a big man center out there to, go up against Detroit here. They're not exactly trying to win this game like you suggested there. So I don't think they really are going to care too much about the, traditional positioning or anything like that. What about on the other side of this one? Just since we're here, we can talk about Detroit a little bit. We had some questions, but it looks like they're mostly cleaned up. And we've got Alec Burks still kind of sitting at the top of the board today. 31.6% boom score probability on DK, 22.3% optimal, only 18% owned still. Is there love in your heart for Mr. Burks here at 4,500 point guard shooting guard on DK? Okay.
Always love in my heart for Mr. Alec Burks. I think he's still too cheap. I mean, it's always kind of scary to click on a guy when, you're thinking that his minutes are probably going to be in the mid 20s, but Burks has been a consistent point per minute type of guy for the better part of 2 seasons at this point. So, I don't expect him to get back to 30 minutes like he did in his last game, but even in, 24 to 26 minutes, which I think is a little bit of a more reasonable projection, that should still be more than enough to return value against the Rockets, who are, I think, 3rd worst in defensive efficiency. So Burks for sure. And then Jalen Duren, I think, is still definitely viable. He's not going to catch a ton of ownership, I think, on this slate, but you now have a guy who has been a pretty ferocious rebounder ever since he entered the starting lineup, going up against a Rockets team that might be without Şengün. And we already talked about how they could play a little bit smaller lineups without Şengün. So I think it's another good spot for Duren to get us a cheap double-double potentially. So he's, again, we'll talk about all these center options, but he's another one to consider.
Yeah, definitely on the board, a little bit more so on the DK boards. 5.8%, or excuse me, 6.2% optimal over there, 5.8% owned, showing a little positive leverage. It's a little more expensive, and you get the one bite at the apple at center on FanDuel. Right. We did just lose like the prime center target, like you said about Şengün when we came into the show, though. Across both sites, across every DFS site in the industry, he was like the top dog there. So it'll be interesting to see where some of these pieces fall. I do feel like Duren will be a little bit more usable, but definitely the better play is over on DK, where you get him at 5,400. And then, I'll take some pieces of this Detroit team, but it looks like Alec Burks is going to be a big part of plans, assuming everything holds up and the numbers don't change. Anything else to call out from this one, or should we move along and pick up another game here?
No, I don't think anybody else really is going to be optimal enough to really focus on for Detroit. If you got pieces of, like a Killian Hayes or a Bojan Bogdanović here and there, I think it's okay, but I don't think either guy you should be going out of your way to play.
Yeah, just kind of moving parts. If you get them in some lineups, you don't have to chase them out necessarily. They're functional, but they're not major upside pieces, major components, which can describe most of what I'm seeing for this next game, the Chicago and Orlando game, except for the Chicago side on FanDuel. And it's the 3 usual suspects there: DeMar DeRozan, Nikola Vucevic, and Zach LaVine, all showing decent double-digit optimal rates, double-digit boom scores on the FanDuel slate. On every other part of this game, so we're talking Orlando on both sites and Chicago on DK, everybody's in single digits in all our probability categories. So outside of those 3 guys on FanDuel, do you care about anything from this game in a I have to have some of that in my lineups tonight sense, or is it just another piece where we'll take shares of some of these guys?
So I will say that the Chicago guys on DraftKings even, I'll be paying up for some of them just because it's a slate now where we don't have a ton of like appealing stud guys to choose from, right? Like There are some big names, but most of those guys seem pretty drastically overpriced. I think DeRozan at 8,900, like I think that's still reasonable for him on DraftKings. So definitely a better play on FanDuel, but I'm not opposed to using them on DK as well. And then I'll add in Markelle Fultz on DraftKings. I think is underpriced at 5,800, playing him around 30 minutes per night at this point, and he's been over a fantasy point per minute producer. So I think Markelle Fultz is a solid option here too. You know, the optimal rate isn't out of control on DraftKings, but I think he has decent upside for his price tag.
Okay. Yeah. And that's another one important to call out the site to site difference on him as well. Even with picking up shooting guard eligibility over on FanDuel, he's $7,000 over there versus 5,800 on the DK slate, point guard only. So he's another guy. He loses a lot of his upside at that price on FanDuel, and that even with the multi-position, there's still some there, a little bit on the bone, but it drops from, or 8 pushing 9 down to about 4. So it cuts about in half as far as the optimal rate goes. So not a major priority, and nobody really on Orlando for me is going to be a priority on FanDuel. I am going to try and get 2 shares of those upside players from Chicago on FanDuel. Do you think it's worth giving a nudge to a guy like Vooch and maybe some of the other, premium centers on this slate now that we've lost Şengün, now that we've lost Time Lord? And as you suggested earlier, we've got a lot of 5,500 to 6,500 type centers now who, they're kind of mix and match. They're kind of low point per minute plays. Does it make sense to maybe get away from some of the field's ownership, give a nudge to a guy like Vooch or somebody like that, and just try and get to shares of an unowned center? And it sounded like that's what you were planning on doing on DK a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's definitely viable. There are some other centers that I like more that I think are kind of better pivots, but certainly Vucevic has been playing, I would say arguably his best basketball of the season over the past month or so. So yeah, I have no problem using Vooch. It's a revenge game too, if you're into that kind of thing. But I think that from a value perspective, he's not going to stand out. So it's really all about just trying to get a different lineup construction, and definitely paying up for a center could be a bit different tonight.
Yeah, I think that is a kind of potentially differentiating approach to just spend a little bit of money at center when everybody else is going value. But it'll be interesting because of the way that the value plays from that center spot are impacting what you can get to in some of these other ones. Just taking a quick peek in chat, there's a little bit of discussion about Rudy Gobert potentially second night of a back-to-back. Any concerns there just since he's been banged up lately? I know he's not on the official injury report, but any concerns about the oddball scratch?
I think he is questionable.
Is he officially questionable?
I think so, but he's been playing.
You're right. Him and Edwards. That's right. I forgot it.
Edwards also has been like a staple of the injury report for the past few weeks. I expect both guys to be in the lineup and will adjust if they're not. But right now I'm planning as if both guys are going to play.
Yep, that's my plan as well. And that's a spot where, I've kind of been focused recently because of all the Rudy Gobert news. And obviously we've got a great play on the bench there in Naz Reid that we can pivot to when he goes into the starting lineup. You see him, with a bullet go to the top of the board. So definitely a play we'll keep our eye on, but that one starts up at 8. So we'll have a little time post lock to adapt to that. And now we're not burning a bunch of, not burning necessarily, but we're not using up a bunch of Şengün shares in that early game. So I think we'll have some opportunity to pivot if we need to. And I also think Rudy Gobert is potentially another interesting spend up spot at that center position. So either way, I'm going to have a little bit of that front court there, but let's keep it moving here. Why don't we go to the Clippers and Atlanta? 232 point total, 1 point spread in this one, kind of a close game. A couple premium players on both sides in this one, but they weren't really shining through for a ton of value in this game earlier in the day. How are you seeing this one? Has anything changed since I did the show this morning with Adam?
So I think, again, this is kind of a site specific game. Like Kawhi Leonard at 9,500 on FanDuel. I think that's a pretty good price tag for him. I think you can use him there. On DraftKings, I'd probably rather play Paul George at 8,700. And George is showing up. He's easily the most optimal player in our boom bust tool. 17.2% on DraftKings, a little bit of positive leverage. So again, it's a day where we kind of are struggling to find high priced players that are standing out as nice values. And I think Paul George fits that description to an extent.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to get shares of Paul George and 8,700 shooting guard, small forward, nice price and nice positioning on the DK slate. Same positioning, 8,600 over on FanDuel puts him on the board, 20% optimal over there. 1.21 FanDuel points per minute, 1.26 on the DK scoreboard. So definitely a player that I'll always take shares of when I can get to him. He's going to be popular, but it's popularity that I don't really care about, and it's below what his optimal rate is on both sides. So you're technically getting him at positive leverage. Kawhi, similar story, lower ownership. So maybe as just a pure ownership pivot, pay up, get different with Kawhi. If you're looking at, I've got 1,000 and change left in my pocket and I've got this small forward position, maybe you pivot some of those shares because they're projecting very similarly, but certainly more value on the Paul George salary. What about on the other side of this one? We've got the Atlanta usual suspects around, Trae Young, DeJounte Murray, Bogdan, of course, John Collins and Clint Capella. I think both of those two guys potentially a little bit more interesting now with no Şengün on the board. I talked to to Adam this morning about both of those guys saying, hey, 6,000, 6,700 with some expectation of minutes for those guys could put them on the board if we didn't have plays X, Y, and Z. Well, now we've lost plays X and Y. So does that put Collins and Capella on the board for you a little bit?
Not really.
Okay.
It's just, again, they're kind of getting squeezed out because the position I think is so loaded. And, this game does have a pretty nice total at 232.5, but the Clippers are not a team that I would consider like a good matchup, now
Sure.
that they're kind of back at full strength. So, Clint Capella, like he does stand out as optimal right now on DraftKings, right? But we're talking 2% ownership versus 4% optimal. So at that point, like, I don't know. I think there are other centers that I'd rather take my stands with.
Okay. And that's fair. It's not like he's shining through from massive, upside scores or anything like that on the board. I just do think it makes him, potentially a little bit more viable, a little bit more interesting as a wrinkle, but, and especially when only, 2% or so of the field is going to be there, I can get to, if I'm doubling that up, I'm not exactly burning a ton of lineup shares. So you can get to a few additional shares there. Anything else that you do like from this game? Anybody that you're targeting from either side that we haven't talked about here?
No, not really.
What do you make of Marcus Morris? Have we had any news on him? Because he was a question mark earlier. Not that he necessarily is a major target. Like I just took him out and I don't really care if he plays or not, but the downstream impact is potentially interesting. So what do you see on the downstream impact if he doesn't go?
I would think it's a slight boost for Leonard and George. Slight boost for Terrence Mann. Maybe
any of the Batums of the world or anybody like that?
Maybe Zubac sees a slight boost in minutes. He's somebody that I'm always kind of interested in. He has not played well recently, but 5,900, we know that he's like a very capable per minute type of guy. So, and the Hawks have kind of been beat up on the interior this season. So, Zubac is somebody that he's kind of fits that Clint Capella type mold where I might want to be slightly over the field on him, but he's not somebody that I'm going out of my way to get to.
Sure. Yep. I think that makes a ton of sense. And, with the variability of minutes there, it's definitely, been a bit of a question mark. So I think that covers us on the Clippers and the Hawks. And if it feels like we're breezing through, guys, we're going to try and go through a lot of the games here and then, maybe double back, cover news and, trying to get through it all. Adam and I took like an hour 20 to get through this slate this morning. And that was with me trying to keep my foot on the gas pedal. But let's talk real quick about BetMGM. BetMGM is going to get you 2 free months of Stokastic Plus Platinum for free, just right out of the kindness of their hearts. All you have to do is go over to their site, create an account, make your first deposit, make your first wager, and you follow the steps, the links. You use our promo code, which is Platinum Sub, which is all one word, and they'll set you up with 2 free months. It comes back our way, and you create your account, get 2 free months of Stokastic Plus Platinum. That's the one that includes access to every single tool for every single sport that we cover, everything except for Fantasy Cruncher. That's always a paid add-on. The beauty part is when you make that first deposit, BetMGM is going to cover you up to $1,000 with first bet insurance. That means you go out there, you drop $1,000 on a stupid bet, you completely blow it, you get blown out of the water and lose all your money. You didn't lose it all. You're getting it back in the form of site credits. They're going to give you, if you put up 1,000, you're going to get 5 $200 credits. You've got a set amount of time to use them. So you get another bite at the apple. You get a little bit of insurance on your first wager. It's a pretty killer offer. That plus 2 free months of Stokastic Plus, not bad with the promo code Platinum Sub. We have to talk a little bit about problem gambling. If you feel like you've got a problem, somebody you know has a problem, putting too much on the line, taking too many stupid risks, risks, not following the math, following the numbers, making the smart plays that we advocate here at Stokastic, have them call or text 1-800-GAMBLER or do that on their behalf. It's an important thing to remember, gang. It's, people can get underwater and sometimes people need help. So 1-800-GAMBLER is the number to reach out for there. In your state, the legal age for gambling is most likely 21. So don't do it if it's not legal under 21 out there. I think we covered everything there. There's some instructions, et cetera, et cetera. I'm sure they'll be findable down in the description below what you're watching here on YouTube. Let's jump back into the games here, Matt. The Washington Wizards going into New Orleans, 4.5-point dogs, 230-point total. This one kind of more boring. We've got Kristaps Porzingis out, certainly creates some opportunities on the Washington side, particularly got my eye on some Kyle Kuzma. I think Bradley Beal's interesting here. But out of all the games that we've got to talk about now, this one kind of became one of the more boring ones. So what are you doing with this one? Any real highlights here?
See, I kind of like this game.
Okay.
At least the Washington side. I think that, and Porzingis, by the way, officially ruled out. He was doubtful. Yeah. And Şengün also officially ruled out.
Officially out.
So,
okay. Now at least I know which set of lineups I can use.
Yeah, we kind of saw the writing on the wall there. We'll keep the eyes posted for a starting lineup potentially. But Şengün not going to play. I think Washington right now, given that they are down Porzingis, that Rui Hachimura has been traded away, that Bradley Beal is still capped at around 30 minutes per night. I think Kyle Kuzma is an interesting stud option. His usage rate has been up in the 30%, range over the past couple of games. He's had a couple games with 50 plus fantasy points. So I think he is a strong stud at his current price tag. I also really like Denny Avdia still at 4,500 on DraftKings. The guy has been really good this season when given the opportunity to play, and he should be penciled in for, at least 30 minutes on this slate. And then Corey Kispert, 3,200 and is going to play, 30 plus minutes. He could kind of, I think, get a bit overlooked with some of this other value that's opened up. And Kispert, while he is a pretty mediocre per minute guy, he did go off for 26 and change 2 games ago when he played over 33 minutes. So I don't hate Corey Kispert either for this team.
Okay. Kispert's the guy where I'll take him. I'll definitely take him. He is showing a little tiny bit of value, a little bit of smidge of a value, but just looking at the per minute numbers. And I mentioned this to Adam, I actually like this Wizards team because you get some healthy per minute numbers across the board from these guys who, there weren't their prominent feature players. I'm not talking about Porzingis. Beal is certainly on this list, but the Kuzmas, the Denny Avdias at 0.85, Kuzma 1.05, Gafford 1.07, Dylan Wright 1.08. You get some nice per minute numbers. It's not like a team like Dallas where you're going to Frankie Smokes at 0.45 or whatever the hell. Or that was Reggie Bullock 0.42, I think. So they're more interesting, more appealing parts to get to. So yeah, I didn't mean to undersell them. I definitely will have some Washington in my life, in my lineups. But I just think the scenario, like the game story here, got more boring compared to all the earth-shattering news we've got across the board in the other one. What about the other side of this one? CJ McCollum, Jonas Valanciunas. Who do you like on the New Orleans side of this one?
Yeah, this game is a little bit less appealing to me. These Pelican guys are still slightly priced up from when they were playing without Brandon Ingram. And, obviously Zion still being out is a big deal. But for the most part, I think that you're looking really just at the top stud options on this team at this point. And that's McCollum for me and maybe Jonas Valanciunas. But I think CJ is really the only guy that has made it into my player pool at this point. All of these supporting pieces, Trey Murphy, Najee Marshall, Herb Jones, these guys that we were kind of leaning on a little bit when the team was a bit more shorthanded, their price tags still haven't adjusted enough to the point where I'm comfortable using them. So I think CJ makes some sense as like a little bit of a contrarian pay up target. He does have a positive leverage score in the boom bust tool. But that's really it for me for New Orleans.
Yep, I think I'm totally with you there. I'll take my shares of CJ and thank him very much. And if a couple shares of Jonas Valanciunas and guys like that come along for the ride, fine. But not a lot of prime targets in this one. And just looking across the two sites in terms of our optimal rate category, on both teams across both sites, the only guy above 10% optimal is Kyle Kuzma on the FanDuel slate at 12.7%. So something to bear in mind there as we're going through. A lot of usable parts here, but maybe not the major upside that we see with a team like Dallas or somebody like that, which runs contrary to what I was just saying about those per minute numbers. So it creates a little, an interesting little wrinkle there where you're getting a lot of these guys potentially productive, not that owned. It's an interesting spot. This could be a weird little inflection point for this slate tonight. So maybe you're right. Maybe this game is more interesting than I was giving it credit for now that we're looking at it. Let's talk about the next one. We will move on. If you spot any questions, by the way, in chat, cut me off or anything like that. I'm trying to keep my eye on chat guys out there. I don't think we've gotten any. Oh no, we did. Justin Cravens dropped the $2 super chat.
Oh my God.
Justin, we appreciate the super chat there. And Matt's going to answer this one for you. Favorite pay up on DK for a single entry tournament. So your favorite DK stud for single entry.
Favorite DK stud. And for stud, I'm assuming that we mean like, I'm going to cap it at DeRozan. I'm going to say 8,900 and up. I think I would have Kuzma as my number one guy. He's the guy that's projecting best for me from a value perspective, even on DraftKings where his salary is significantly more expensive than it is on FanDuel. But Kuzma in that top tier is kind of the best value perspective for me. There are other guys with more ceiling. I think Sabonis is a nice ceiling play if you wanted to go with a different direction. But as far as like pure value, Kuzma's the guy that's grading out the best for me.
I don't know if I'm ready to live in a world where those words collide in the same sentence in my head. Kyle Kuzma, number one stud on the slate, but I think it's a good call. I think there's plenty of upside, plenty of opportunity for him, and the price is right. There's definitely a lot of juice there to be squeezed for Kuzma. So I like that one. Don't think we have too much left in this game, so why don't we jump? We'll cover another one, and then we'll talk about PrizePicks. I've got it in a different order on the board there, but we're jumping around a little bit. Sacramento Kings 3-point favorites going into Minnesota, 237.5 point total. This was the big total on the board all day long. There's a lot of competitive ones, but this has been the high mark. What do we like? Starts off on the Sacramento side. You just mentioned Domantas Sabonis. I know De'Aaron Fox was another talking point for me and Adam this morning. So how much Fox, how much Sabonis, and what else do you like from Sacramento?
Yeah, I think Sabonis would be my preferred option of the two. Just from the ceiling and the diverse skill set that he possesses. He has not had his best games recently, so the price has come back down a bit, particularly on FanDuel now. He's back down to 9,800. That's a very favorable price tag for me. At 10-3 on DraftKings, I think that's okay as well. But yeah, from a per minute perspective, the guy's been at like 1.4 fantasy points per minute this season. The Timberwolves are a relatively good matchup. They play fast. And even though they have Rudy Gobert, they haven't been a great defensive team. So I think Sabonis would be my preferred choice of the two. De'Aaron Fox is okay as well. I tend to lean towards players with a little bit of a more well-rounded skill set. And, it's hard to get more well-rounded than Sabonis.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a phenomenal player. And it's a great spot. I like that you called that out because I like hunting guys like that who I know are dominant point per minute type producers, stud caliber players. When there's price spikes and then they don't live up to it and they're on the downswing of that spike, that's when I really love to pounce on those players because that's when you get those big upside games. The public has jumped off of them and the prices drop back down. There's major opportunity for a player like that. So definitely on the target list for me tonight. I'll get my shares of the De'Aaron Fox as well. I like that spot. Kevin Huerter was showing some value earlier in the day. 13.6% boom score probability, 8% optimal, 8% owned on DK. He's 5,400 shooting guard small forward over there. At 6,300 shooting guard small forward on FanDuel, he's not all that relevant, but he's not owned at all. He's 5% optimal, 1% owned. So what do you think of Huerter across the two sites? I assume you like him better on DK, but would he be in your player pool for FanDuel?
Probably not. I think even at DK, I'm not super excited about playing him. He kind of is just grading out as like a neutral option. I mean, and that's reflected 8% ownership, 8% optimal rate. So even at a cheaper salary, I don't see him as like a super intriguing play. So I'm not really all that excited to then pay $1,000 more for him.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's it. It's another one where, hey, if he trickled into a handful of lineups, and I'm talking small handful on the FanDuel board there, I wouldn't necessarily chase him out just because nobody's going to be on him, and there is minor upside, I suppose, on him, but not one of my favorite plays. A little bit more love on the DK slate, but I'm with you there. What about the other side? We touched on the Rudy Gobert thing. We expect him to play. I think I agree with you on that, but I'm always wrong on Rudy Gobert, and I never really want to rely on like the toughness of the French to come through when he's got a boo-boo.
Hey, man.
I was trying to get away with that one. Anthony Edwards as well. Obviously big stud on the slate here, 9,300, 9,400 across sites. I assume he goes. He's in a lot of lineups, at least, as much as he comes up in naturally, if not a few more where we're putting the thumb on the scales. But what's the impact if Anthony Edwards doesn't go? Let's say he doesn't go, Gobert goes, everybody else is full go. What's the impact to like guys like D'Lo, Kyle Anderson, guys like that if Anthony Edwards doesn't play?
Yeah, I think Russell then becomes kind of the clear top option for them offensively. He's already played very well over his last 5 games. He's going to be a pretty popular target, I think, on this slate. But, he would become, I would imagine, one of the chalkiest plays if Edwards doesn't go. I don't think Anderson sees a real spike or dip in value one way or the other. Maybe he gets a few extra shot attempts, but Anderson is not out there to score for the most part. He's there to do a little bit of everything. So I think that, regardless of who is on the court around him, his numbers are going to be pretty similar. Jalen Noel is probably the guy that would get the biggest boost from me. There would be more minutes available for him. And we saw earlier this season that when Noel gets a nice handful of minutes, he can really rack up the fantasy points. So he's 3,400 on DraftKings. Right now, he's standing out as one of the most positively leveraged plays on the slate, and that's with Edwards in the projections. So I would only imagine, his ownership would increase in that scenario, but so would his ceiling. So, yeah, Noel is somebody that I think is very interesting.
Okay. So definitely a lot of moving parts there if we get any news, but I think, I'm just building and hoping that they go and they both play tonight. That's how I've got everything structured, and we've got time to change it, but I kind of don't want to have to, because that $9,300 Edwards share, wherever I get that's going to be interesting to try and replace at shooting guard, small forward. That's a lineup. That's one that rebuilds your whole lineup. If you have to replace that, I think you start getting to shares of expensive players at different positions, and you start probably pulling more value there as you rebuild. So it'll be a slate changer for sure. Would Naz Reid be in your plans at all in the event that Rudy Gobert is in? He's only 4,900 power forward center on the DK slate, only projecting him for 15 minutes, but we do know he can do a little bit of damage in 15 minutes. If he gets like 18 and change, just on the idea of Rudy, does play, but maybe a little sore or whatever, is there any reason to go to Naz with Rudy in, or is it exclusively a Rudy is out, press the Naz button situation for you?
Hit the Naz. I think it's an exclusively if Rudy is out. On certain slates, you can make a case for a 15 to 18 minute Naz Reid, but with the amount of centers that are already popping from a value perspective, it would just be a lot of uphill, like a serious uphill battle for Reid to kind of surpass some of those other dudes.
Yeah, I think that makes a ton of sense. And there is there's tremendous value in that similar-ish or similar enough type of a price range that, it knocks it off the board, unless, or probably since he is in some of my lineups, until we get that news that Rudy Gobert doesn't play, because that's how it always works out for me. But
He's going to play. Rudy's in there. I have a
Rudy's going. All right. We've got heart. Rudy's going. All right. I'm going to kick off my little sim here, and hopefully that'll run, which means I have to save this my dashboard, close that up, and then I'm going to knock out the PrizePicks read here in just 1 second. Let me go on that. All right, that's going. Let's talk about our presenting sponsor, PrizePicks, gang, and then we'll get back into talking about some of these games. But you can get yet another free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum from our pals at PrizePicks, our presenting sponsor, one of our best sponsors across the site. We do a ton with them. They're offering you a free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum, and then they're going over the top on that. They're giving you up to $100 deposit match bonus if you go over at PrizePicks. You sign up, you create a new account, you make your first deposit. So as Emac likes to say, if you put in 50, they'll give you 50. If you put in 100, they'll give you 100. If you put in 200, they'll give you 100. It's a $100 max deposit bonus, but it's a great way to start off a new account. You're instantly doubling up on $100. It really is. I just had to swipe it. I used it this morning too. It's so perfectly EMAC that I just had to, I have to quote it from time to time. So yeah, it's just like I was saying. I mean, Matt, what's a better way to start an account than instantly doubling up on $100 before you even make your first place? Like that seems like a no-brainer to me. So I'd be doing that over at PrizePicks, and it's a prop-based site. If you guys don't know, so you're not playing against sharks, you're not playing against Alex Baker, you're not playing against Adam, you're not playing against Matt LaMarca here. You're playing against the house. You're building out your 5-player lineup card using props from across different sports. You can use multi-sport entries. You win up to 10 times your entry fee if you beat the house, if you hit your 5 picks. It's that simple. It's that straightforward. We've got projections. We've got picks for props up on the site that you can use with win rates. It makes it really, really easy to put these cards together, guys. So go check out PrizePicks. I'm sure there's a link and all that good stuff to help you claim your free time. I'll tell the people about the lineup builder a little bit later on. Let's jump into this next game. What's next?
Well, we got some news. Let's go through this news real quick.
What happened?
So, small piece of news. Marcus Morris ruled out for the Clippers.
Okay, good. So we're planning on that one.
Yeah, we kind of touched on that situation, I think.
Yeah. Now give me the bad news.
The bigger one is we got the Rockets starting lineup here, and it's going to be Dacian Nix, Eric Gordon, KJ Martin, Tari Eason, and Jabari Smith Jr.
Okay.
So no Bruno Fernando at center, no Usman Garuba at center. They're kind of going with the small ball lineup. So I think that's great news for this game from just a fantasy perspective in general. I love Tari Eason now. I still love Eric Gordon. I think Kenyon Martin is definitely playable. I'm going to take the plunge on Dacian Nix at his, coming off of his single-digit 30-minute performance. And then on the other side, I think it's a great spot now for Jalen Duren to, have one of those 15 rebound type of performances.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be there for him between the chances and not a lot of stiff competition out there for him. So definitely like that spot a little bit. I like the Eric Gordon spot a lot too. Adam talked about him a little bit. He's a 0.66 FanDuel point per minute player this year, 0.69 in DK scoring, but that jumps up to almost a fantasy point per minute in the scenario that we had coming into this slate. And now we're taking an additional big time producer in Şengün off the board for this team. So I think there's just going to be usage galore, opportunity galore for a guy like Eric Gordon. I agree. Yep. I think the world is going to start going to Tari Eason here, and I think I'm going to be right along with him. What were you going to jump in with?
No, I was going to confirm. I ran the split. So Gordon with Şengün and the 2 guards off the court this season. He increases his usage rate by 12.3%, his assist rate by 17.2%, and he averages just over a fantasy point per minute. So, yeah, I think it's a great spot for him at 4,500.
Definitely. Yeah, that looks like a nice spot to mash a few extra shares in. And do you think he's maybe leaves a little bit of ownership on the table? Like I'm sure he's going to be popular, but just a name that a lot of people in the world, I'm sure, are not overly comfortable going to. And maybe people are just looking at the season long numbers and not really thinking through the scenario. Do you think he ends up like a little under what he should probably be going off at in terms of where we're thinking about him?
I think it's possible. I mean, so the last run of ownership that I saw, which granted that had Şengün in, but we only had Gordon projected for around 13.5% ownership. I don't think that Şengün is all of a sudden going to make that spike to like 40. So,
right. It's just not the natural connection like out there in John Q. Public's head of, all right, big time center that everybody's going to scratch. So let me go to this, to this guard. Let me go to this forward. So yeah, I think it's definitely an appealing spot for the Gordon shares and the Eason shares. And anything else to call out from this one or any other news that broke in the last couple of minutes?
I saw somebody in the chat mention Jae'Sean Tate. I am a known Jae'Sean Tate truther. He's gone fantasy point per minute basically in his last 2 games. He was actually better than that in his most recent outing, 26 DraftKings points in 21 minutes. I just don't know if the minutes are really going to be there for him. Like if I felt that Tate had a chance to get to like 28 minutes off the bench, I would be very interested in using him, but I still think that even with these injuries, his minutes are probably capped around 20-ish, 22. And that's going to be tough for him to give us like a ceiling performance. So I still very much like the player. I just don't know if he gets enough playing time.
Okay. All right, that's an interesting one because I mean, looking at our board, we did have him 22.2 minutes, 4,300 FanDuel, 4,000 DK. He was showing some value in terms of 15% optimal rate on DK, a little bit more on the FanDuel board. So it sounds like you're not loving him quite as much as our numbers are there. Is it just it's purely on the minutes because it does sound like you're a fan of the player?
Yeah, it's solely on just the minutes. And I think, like, if you ask me if he can get to 5x value tonight, 6x value even, I would say yes. But I think we need more than that given the dynamics of this slate.
I got what you're saying. That makes a ton of sense. It's not going to be, the spot where you're going to get a prize for getting Jayshawn Tate, right? It's going to be the spot where Jayshawn Tate had a nice little day and wasn't overly relevant. So that makes a ton of sense to me. Let's move on, jump back into the game by game approach here. If anything drops, let's all call it out. But we've got the Lakers-Boston rivalry being renewed here. 7.5-point dogs for LA going into Boston, 235-point total. We know that Time Lord scratched from this one. So what's the downstream impact from that? And what are we getting to from both sides of this one? Take it any way you want it.
Yeah. So, I mean, the clear answer is now Al Horford. He gets a spike at center. He should see a boost in playing time. I'm still not sure how much playing time that means and how productive he's gonna be, right? Like, Horford has kind of been mediocre this year, 0.82 DraftKings points per minute. So even if you want to give him like mid 30s minutes wise, that still doesn't make him a smash play in my opinion. So I think he's actually a candidate to get over-owned now with this Robert Williams news coming out. So unfortunately, this is a game where not much really appeals to me. I will have some Tatum just because, he's Jason Tatum. He can go off for 60 fantasy points and
sure.
Fitting him in is not that difficult tonight. And then Jaylen Brown is somebody that always stands out as underpriced on FanDuel. I don't understand what he has done to these people. But just every night he's about $1,000 cheaper than he should be. So he hasn't played great in his last two games, but Jaylen Brown, I think is an excellent option on FanDuel. So I think that's really where my focus is for the Boston side. And then on the Lakers, LeBron James, questionable, but will probably be in the lineup. I don't hate him if he goes, but I think there are probably better studs to choose from. And LeBron, I think, is the only Laker in my player pool at this point.
Okay. So no AD in there with a 26.1 minute projection and upside of, 50 plus fantasy points in that 26 minutes. No AD.
Yeah. If he's only going to play 26, 28 minutes, I don't think he gets to, 50 enough in my opinion.
Yeah, and it's tough it's not like we're getting a discount for the minutes, right? Maybe a slight one because he's 10-4 on DK. He's 10-7 on FanDuel. So it's not like we're getting a major discount for the minutes or anything. So yeah, it makes him tough to get to with a 26-minute projection, just so everybody can see it, how it comes through the numbers. 0.1% optimal on DK, 0.4% optimal on FanDuel. That is,
he basically needs to be like a 2+ fantasy point per minute type of guy to pay off his current salary.
Yep. Which,
even Jokic doesn't do that. So
in his defense, he was a 1.87 fantasy point per minute guy on FanDuel, scoring in 26 minutes that last time out. So does, kind of tickles the back of the brain with nobody on him, maybe a share or two, but certainly not a priority play. I love the Jaylen Brown call on the FanDuel slate. I also think, the odds and ends, like a Malcolm Brogdon, potentially a little bit interesting on the FanDuel slate. I agree. Yeah. Horford, big downturn this year, 0.81. I think a lot of people out there probably think, Al Horford, he's been washed for a number of years, but that's not really true. He was a fantasy point per minute player just last year. He had that weird year where OKC just benched him for the second half of the season. And a lot of people thought he was, too old and everything from that. And he was back to his normal self last year. So this is a big downturn, but I still like the spot. I mean, you're getting 5,300 center power forward. He's on the board for me on the FanDuel slate. I think he would be on DK, but he's showing a little bit less value over there just with the way the position works. So an interesting play there. Let's jump out of this one and into a Luka Doncic list.
Well, let's. I'm sorry. I think we missed the game. I think we missed. Phoenix
what did we miss?
And the Spurs.
Oh, we did. You're right. I skipped right over that one. Take us through Phoenix and the Spurs. 231 point total.
I was excited to talk about this one because I think DeAndre Ayton is my my contrarian pay up center target, right?
Okay.
We were talking about paying up at center to be a bit different. I think Ayton is the clear top candidate for that. So you look at his last game, his usage rate topped 40%. He shot just 6 for 20 from the field, and he still had over 51 DraftKings points. And that was with him saying, by the way, that he still didn't feel good. So hopefully now a little bit further removed from that illness. Great.
Is he going to feel good until he is no longer a Phoenix Sun? Is he just going to not feel that good anyway? I think that's just kind of his outlook on life at this point.
That's fair. If only we all had to deal with being unhappy while making, $30+ million.
Right, those bastards matched my $30 million contract.
So unfair.
Oh, speaking of which, the Pacers matched or extended Miles Turner just before the show, which was a curveball. I think, he was on the trade block.
I did see that. He still might get traded. I don't know if they have to wait a certain period now to trade him, but good for him. I'm glad he got the bag. Hopefully this means that the Pacers will now play him 30 minutes a night. Please.
Yeah, that would be nice for our purposes for sure. But congrats to him. He deserves it. All right. So we like the Ayton spot. I agree with you. That's an interesting pivot. And like I said earlier in the show, I think it does make some sense to maybe look at some of those spend up spots. So he's on that list for me. And he's a little bit cheaper than Vooch, who was the guy we were talking about at that point. So gives you a little bit of additional appeal there in being cheap. Chris Paul certainly on the board. Cam Johnson, part of my plans on the FanDuel slate. Small forward, power forward, only $6,000, 5,500 on DK. Looks pretty relevant across both sites. On the other side, on the San Antonio side, Trey Jones showing a little bit of value, but not anything overly crazy from the San Antonio side on FanDuel. Nothing really on DK. You seeing any difference on San Antonio here?
So I will say on DraftKings, I think Romeo Langford at 3,300 is a slightly appealing target. He is another one of these guys who is perennially questionable. Literally every day the guy is questionable, but he's played 24-ish, 26 minutes in his last 2 games. And he's been a decent fantasy producer when on the floor recently. So I think he's interesting at 3,300. I think Zach Collins is also kind of in play for me at 4,100. Another one of these guys where minutes are a bit questionable, but just super productive when he's on the floor. So those are DK specific plays only. They are far more expensive on FanDuel, but I think on DK, both of those guys can make it into your lineups as value plays.
Yeah, and Collins is a great example of just site to site difference. 6.2% optimal on DK, 9.7% owned. A sharp 2% optimal on the FanDuel slate because he's 5,400 over there, power forward and center. So just not going to be a big part of my plans. I'll take a few shares if I get them, but not somebody I'm overly targeting here. That kind of applies to most of San Antonio. It's just, I'll take them where I get them, but not a big opportunity for me here. Let's look. All right, now let's go to, where were we? Lakers, Boston? No, we talked about that.
Dallas, going to Dallas.
Yeah, we're going to the Doncic-less Dallas Mavericks that were showing all the value in the worlds to the slate earlier in the day. I assume they're still looking pretty strong here. So what are we seeing from Dallas with no Luke out there and no what's his face, Christian Wood either?
Yeah, lots of shots available, and I think Spencer Dinwiddie certainly warrants heavy consideration on this slate. He's coming off a huge game against Phoenix, 59 DraftKings points, played nearly 40 minutes. And the numbers this season in general with Doncic and Wood off the floor are very favorable. So the only thing with him is he's not sneaking up on anybody, right? We're projecting him for more than 50% ownership on DraftKings. I'm assuming it's similar on FanDuel, but a guy that I think you need to at least have some exposure to. Even if you don't want to eat the full chalk, I would not full fade Dinwiddie on this slate, just given how many shots are available for this team. After that, Tim Hardaway Jr. Should be the next guy up, I think, from a usage perspective. And particularly on FanDuel, he stands out as a really strong value. Then you can go down to the tier of value players. You've got Dorian Finney-Smith, who I'm not even sure who he was in his last game. He posted a 25% usage rate. Who is that man? That is not Dorian the Dorian Finney-Smith that I know.
He finally lived up to the acronym.
Yeah, there he
finally lived up to DFS.
I would not expect a repeat, but certainly can pay off his salary. Josh Green, I think, is even slightly better than DFS. at 3,600 on DraftKings. Dwight Powell, maybe the best value center on this slate at 3,800. So yeah, it's a team that just all sorts of different ways you can load up on them. I think playing, 4 of these guys in cash games is viable, in tournaments is viable. One thing I would consider is maybe bring it back with a Utah player or two if you do want to load up on Dallas. The Utah guys are all projected for far less ownership. So it's a good way to kind of eat some of the chalk and then differentiate at the same time.
Yep, absolutely. And, looking at this board, I mean, we've got 5 guys on this that are, 25% optimal plus on the FanDuel slate, similar territory on the DK slate. The public is certainly there, a little bit more so on FanDuel. The one guy I want to zero in on in terms of ownership, and I typically don't care about individual ownership, but this one's just standing out to me. 60% of the field is of my last update, which is maybe 1 or 2 behind, but still a healthy chunk of the field on Tim Hardaway Jr. That gives me the shivers, having watched this kid play for most of his career. It's 0.74 FanDuel points per minute this season. Certainly more opportunity, plenty of upside, plenty of opportunity. He's a chucker when he wants to be. The price is right. I just get a little bit nervous with that much of the public on him. Are you going over the field, under the field? Where are you related to the field on Timmy Hardaway here?
Well, in full disclosure, I'm not playing on FanDuel tonight, so thankfully I don't really have to make that decision.
You don't have to worry about it.
He's a much easier player to be underweight on DraftKings, but I think a 60% owned Tim Hardaway is a prime candidate to be underweight on. Even with a spike in value with Wood and Doncic off the floor, he's still kind of, I don't want to say pedestrian, but he's not lighting the world on fire from a per minute basis. He's right around like 0.9 DraftKings FanDuel points per minute with both guys sidelined. So I don't think
it's not like he's 3,700 too. It's not like you're getting, if I was getting that number from a guy priced like that, then mash him into as many lineups as I can possibly get. I don't care where the public's got him. When he's solidly in that shooting guard, small forward, mid-range, there's a lot of guys I can get 0.9 FanDuel points per minute from on this slate. And
I actually overshot it. It's 0.79.
0.79. So that's barely even changing from his normal output. So we're getting basically the normal version of Tim Hardaway at 60% ownership. That becomes concerning to me. He's going to be in my lineups for sure, but
I would say so.
That's going to be a fun ride. And this is going to be the one where at the end of the night, I'm going to be banging my head on the wall saying, you knew Tim Hardaway wasn't going to be good tonight. Why didn't you take him out of your lineups, you idiot? Or why'd you play 80% of him, you idiot? So that'll be fun. Let's take a look. Anything else from this game to call out?
Yeah. I mean, again, I think.
Who are your favorite guys from Utah? Because you did mention it.
Yeah.
Or reiterate whatever you were going to reiterate. Take it wherever you want.
No, on the Dallas thing, I was just going to say, I think that like, if you're looking to take stands on some of them, the guys I would be underweight on are Hardaway and DFS, right? Like, I think those are the 2 most likely candidates to bust with inflated ownership. So,
and then like Reggie Bullock, I'm happy to leave on the table on any slate.
I'm never playing Reggie Bullock.
Yeah. And this is the team that I use as the example.
One-on-one for me to consider him.
This is or maybe just, shooting threes alone in a gym or something like that.
Yeah.
But this is the team that I use as the example of, it's just a team where all these guys are like 0.7, 0.6, point whatever fantasy points per minute. You don't see a lot of upside, even when they do get the minutes, like we were just talking about with Timmy. So difficult to get to outside of Spencer Dinwiddie, but a big part, not difficult to get to, difficult to trust, but guys we're going to be getting to in spades tonight. So what about on the Utah side, real quick? Who are the guys that you're targeting there? The usual suspect, Conley, Markkanen?
Yeah, I think Conley is your best per dollar bet, especially on DraftKings. He's 5,500. I think that's still too cheap. I mean, he's too cheap on FanDuel too. And then Markkanen from a ceiling perspective, right? Like, if you're looking for a shootout game stack type of scenario, I think Markkanen is clearly your top option to consider with the Jazz. But I do have Conley as the best per dollar option on the team.
Yeah, Conley was showing a little bit of value. I was liking him on the FanDuel board earlier in the day, and I'm hoping he's in some of these shares of lineups that I'm sorting through here now. So why don't we jump in with the last few minutes here? Talk to us about the Toronto Raptors, Portland Trailblazers, or any breaking news that has come to your attention in the last couple of minutes. Raptors were 5-point dogs going into Portland, 232.5-point total. Precious Achiuwa was a major piece of the puzzle earlier, but I haven't looked at the board in a little while, so I don't know what the update looks like.
Yeah, I still think he is a very strong option. If you asked me, would I rather play him at 4,400 or Dwight Powell at 3,800? I would probably take the Powell side, but it's really close. I mean, both guys are strong plays. You can use both for sure. Um, Chris Boucher, another guy that I think should see a few additional minutes, and we know how good he can be on a per minute basis when he sees the playing time. So I almost would rather pivot to Boucher, fade some of the Achua chalk, and maybe get a little bit of leverage in that scenario. I think that's an interesting route to take for tournaments. And then I think you can use Fred VanVleet at 8,100 on DraftKings. He has been really good recently. Portland, not a team you necessarily need to fear defensively. So, if I was building a cash game team, Precious Achua would be in it. But right now, he's coming out severely negatively leveraged on DraftKings. I think that pivoting to Boucher or even just going with Dwight Powell, like I think it's an interesting scenario to get off of some of that chalk.
Okay. Interesting spot there. Any love for like Siakam or like Trent, any of the other odds and ends from this team? Or, not Siakam. He's obviously a big part of this.
Yeah, Siakam's fine. I mean, the thing about Siakam is, he's going to play close to 40 minutes if the game is competitive, which is always great in DFS. The thing I don't like about him is he's center only eligible now on DraftKings. That kind of cripples a little bit of his availability with center being such a strong position. But on FanDuel, where you can still use him at power forward, I think that he is worth considering in tournaments.
Okay. And I've got, handful of shares of them, I think, on the FanDuel slate. The entries just went in. So about a minute and a half, 2 minutes left out there, gang, as you're crunching your lineups together here. We're going to talk about the last piece of the puzzle, the Portland Trail Blazers. Any shares of anybody not named Damian Lillard going into your lineups?
Jeremy Grant.
Okay.
I think you can use him on FanDuel. I think at 6,400, that's a decent play. He's 6,100 on DraftKings. I don't hate him at that price either, but not a priority type of guy. He's a more of a where he pops up, I'm using him type of play.
Okay. And I think that's how he kind of looks on our board. Same thing with Anthony Simons. I'll take some shares of him. I'll take some shares of Grant, but Dame is the priority. I think where we can afford him, obviously massive upside, 85.4 FanDuel points in 39 and a half minutes the last time out. So definitely major upside. Yeah. Pretty good. What do you make of Nurk on this slate? We got him projected at 26 minutes, not really showing that much value. Is there upside for minutes? Can he find 30 minutes in this game?
I would say no. I don't think that this is the type of matchup where you need the big bodied center. Toronto definitely does play on the bigger side, but not, their centers aren't the big hulking type of dudes. So for me, Nurkic probably capped again, 26, 28 minutes, and not necessarily interested in him at this price tag.
Okay. Yeah. And that's an interesting point. Chris Boucher, he kind of blow over in a stiff breeze, I think, on a lot of days with his height and slenderness. But yeah, it's, potentially an interesting spot, but the minutes might not be there. So if he was getting 30 plus at his pricing and his production, I could get there, but it's not shining through right now. And we're basically locked. So I'm not going to have the opportunity to outside of late swapping or anything like that. But stick around, guys. We're here till 7:30 tonight. I didn't mention that earlier in the show. Probably should have plugged the fact that we were sticking around for an extra half hour. We're going to be talking through any of the changes that come through over the next little bit, talk through some of the starts of these games. But let me clean up a little business that I left on the table so that we could talk about games real quick. Let's see. We talked about BetMGM, great sponsor. Up to $1,000 of first bet insurance and 2 months of Stokastic Plus Platinum from them. PrizePicks is the presenting sponsor. 1 free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum and up to $100 deposit match bonus over there. Win up to 10 times your entry fees on a player prop based contest playing against the house. Just a great site. A lot of action going on at PrizePicks. And over at Stokastic, we've got a great offer on our NBA lineup generator. Matt, did you see somebody won 50 grand the other day on Tuesday using the lineup generator? Did you catch that guy's posts and tweets and all the chest thumping we've been doing about it? Because it's pretty cool.
I did not see that, but that's awesome. Congratulations to that guy.
Yeah, not too bad. And I watched that happen. He was in Discord saying, holy shit, I built this with the lineup builder. Like, that'll happen in real time. This wasn't set up behind the scenes. This wasn't like, hey, tell that guy,
Rigged.
we'll give him something. Yeah, no rig promos here, nothing like that. This is just pure off the top of what the people out there are doing. And you guys can do it too. We're offering the NBA lineup generator for 50% off for your first week. That's after that, it becomes $8.95. So it's under $5 for your first week of NBA lineup generator access. It's a new package, the NBA lineup generator package. Click the link in the description, pin comments below this thing that you're watching here. But it's great. You can choose ownership settings. You can lock and swap players. You can export up to 20 lineups at a time. So this is geared toward the people who aren't using the optimizer flavor of the month, whether it's Fantasy Cruncher or one of these other major optimizers that can run out thousands of lineups, and people who aren't building, 3,000 lineup pools and whittling it down to 150 to drop in real quick like I just did. These are for people who like to put thought into their lineups, like to build, 20 lineups, put them into a 20 max, build 20 lineups, put them into the 150 max, and put in high quality lineups, make the right choices using the same kind of data, the same kind of math-based decision-making that the optimizers are using. That's what the lineup builder is going to do for you guys. So it is a great new tool, 50% off your first week. And then after that, less than $10 a week, guys. That's what, 1 tournament entry, 2 tournament entries. It pays for itself, I guarantee you. So check out the lineup generator. Check out that offer. It's a killer offer there. Also check out OddsShopper if you're a player prop better or just a sports bettor in general. OddsShopper is a great way to find and create your own parlay bets, find arbitrage opportunities, shop bets to find the best price available across all the different sports books in the industry. That's OddsShopper with 2 S's in the middle. So make sure you're going over there and checking them out. Our great sister site there. All right, that takes care of some business. What changed? Did we get any atomic bombs dropped on the slate while I was doing those plugs in the last 2 minutes?
I haven't seen any news since Marcus Morris being ruled out, so I think we're okay.
Thankful for that. All right, good. I have no idea what actually went into.
I am blocked. I am blocked by Underdog, so I don't.
What did you do? What'd you do to Underdog?
Nothing.
Did you pull an Eric Lindquist? Okay.
Absolutely nothing, but I am I will say I am affiliated with someone that Underdog has a blood feud with. So I caught a stray bullet.
Okay. All these ins and outs of the DFS world. I don't know how people keep up. I really don't. I see that all the time. People, oh, did you see what this guy won or this guy said about that other guy who won this? And he said he's cheating. A lot of beef. It is like, oh my God, it's like a soap opera. I don't know how people keep up with everything that's going on, but all right. Underdog, if you're out there, it's Matt LaMarca. Come on. He needs to know. He needs to have his finger on the pulse. And we've got the news guy anyway, who's catching all that same news. He's catching your tweets out there. So Matt's going to see him anyway, guys. Unblock Matt LaMarca. Come on. Everybody out there, tweet at Underdog, tell him to unblock Matt LaMarca. I'm sure that'll help. But we do have the News God and our dedicated news channel in Discord for anybody who's looking for different sources of news out there. And those are great options as well. So what ended up in your lineups, Matt, as you're looking at what you actually entered? Did you have lineups entered already as we were talking through all that? Like, what's your process behind the scenes as we were talking through that? Because you seem more cool, calm, and collected than I was.
I have most of my work done before we get started. I make some tweaks here and there. And then I don't normally run lineups until, right before I'm ready to submit. So I ended up, I think, with a little bit more Houston. I'm going to be higher on Houston than the field. I'm probably going to be a little bit underweight on Dallas. So I think that's kind of my my big decisions that I made. I just really like some of these Houston guys, and some of the Dallas chalk scares me. And, looking at the boom bust tool, we kind of went through it. There's a lot of negative leverage scores on the Dallas side right now. So, I ate the Dinwiddie chalk. I'm playing Dwight Powell, but I kind of stayed away from some of these other guys that I think are a little bit riskier.
Yeah, and I think that makes some sense, right? It's not something that I advocate a lot when I'm talking about a lot of these plays. I tend to chase optimal rates, chase boom score, and chase probabilities, and not really sweat individual ownership. But when we're seeing like collectively across the board on all of those guys who are all low per minute producers who can be replicated in other spots, like we were talking about with Tim Hardaway Jr., I just think it made sense when that much of the field was on him to start going away from him. I'm about to pull my lineups back into the optimizer here and see what I actually have in this pool. I'm expecting I'm going to be disappointed in myself with the massive amount of Tim Hardaway Jr. that's probably in here, but we'll deal with that a little bit later on. If you were me and you saw a huge share of Tim Hardaway Jr., would you spend the half hour that I'm going to have after this show that we're done with trying to get out of some of those shares? Like, what's left on the board for me to swap to from Tim Hardaway Jr.? What's my best swap? Let's put it that way.
A good question. So, first off, Tim Hardaway Jr. is probably fine. I mean, I don't want to be.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. True.
I wouldn't want to be overweight on him, but as far as like a per minute points per minute type of or per dollar projection, I should say, he's gonna grade out as one of your better options on FanDuel. So I don't think you need to panic if you have a lot of him, and especially since I don't see like an obvious pivot. Let's see who are some of these guys in the same price range. Like,
while you're looking for that, guess who my number one owned player on FanDuel is? Mr. Tim Hardaway Jr. Kind of had a feeling. Spencer Dinwiddie, number 3, Chris Paul wedged in between them. I wasn't actually expecting to have that much Chris Paul. I'm decently over the field on, or where the field's projected to be on Chris Paul. Good amount of DFS, some Precious in there. And then a lot of odds and ends coming up in, the 20s and 30% range.
We talked about it. I think Phoenix is being overlooked tonight. Like their injuries aren't new, but they are still really decimated, right? No Devin Booker, no Campaign, no Landry Shamet. Like DeAndre Ayton, again, he posted a 40% usage rate in their last game. That should tell you just how thin this team is. And they're facing the worst defensive team in the league. So I think Paul, Cam Johnson, Ayton, even Bridges, like all these guys, I think can eat in this spot.
Yep, absolutely. And looking at my center exposures, Ayton looks like my 3rd highest owned center on the FanDuel slate. And a lot of my shares on FanDuel really, it's difficult to exactly peg it down because there's so much power forward and center eligibility here. But I've got a ton of Precious, a lot of Dwight Powell, a lot of Ayton, decent amount of Vooch, starts to trail off around Sabonis, and then odds and ends around like Siakam, John Collins, guys like that we talked about. But I like my shares of Ayton that I got, decent little chunk of Ayton there. And I'm with you on those plays. We talked about Cam Johnson. I do think he's, a special player with some nice opportunity now that he's back to full health here and getting plenty of run there. So I'm curious where he came up. Yeah, decent chunk of him on like 16% of Cam Johnson, decent percent of 10% of Mikal Bridges. So yeah, I'm with you. I like the Suns here. What else are we looking at? What's going on the board here? Let's see what's going on in chat.
The chat is definitely excited about Duran's ownership on DraftKings. So hopefully he can come through for us. I feel like he's one of the guys that I'm kind of stepping out on a limb for today. I am a big Jalen Duran guy. I mean, since he's moved into the starting lineup, I think he has the 2nd best rebound rate in the league. Like the guy is a beast on the boards. So the question is whether or not he can get to 10 points. But, if he gets to 10 points, the double-double is pretty much a lock. Right. So I'm a big Duran fan. I think that this is a great spot for him.
Yeah, and like we talked about, more appeal on the DK slate with the bonus structure and the way the pricing fell. Looks like I didn't get much of him. I have 1 share of him on the FanDuel slate, so I did get to him once. If he has that monster game, maybe that'll be the lineup that puts us over the top. But an interesting spread, like I was saying, I have pretty broad spread at a lot of these positions. Just looking at it easily, like I said, my highest owned guy, Timmy Hardaway, up at 71% right now. That is, what did I say before? If I had 60+%, I'd be really concerned and worried. And here I am, 70+%. That's going to be, I'm at least going to take a look at the shape and structure of those lineups, see if there's any that are leaving too much salary on the table, things like that, where maybe I can make some pivots. But, like you stressed, it is important to clarify. I'm not saying I don't want to play Tim Hardaway. I'm not saying that he's not a stellar play on this slate, because he is. Everything about the math, everything about the numbers, the projections, the median, all of what we're seeing here indicates that he is a very, very strong play. It's just the ownership and it's just the Timmy Hardaway of it that I don't totally trust. So a little bit of bias, a little bit of uncomfortability, the rare bias play for me creeping in around the edges. And I haven't changed anything yet. It's just, I'm wary is where I'm coming down on that one. So that's how I kind of try and like to handle when bias creeps in. I don't like to actually change things. I just like to be on my toes.
The second you trust Tim Hardaway is when he starts to hurt you again, It's like I finally started trusting the Dallas Cowboys and Dak Prescott, and then they show up and do what they did last year.
You don't want to do that. Even the Dallas Cowboys don't trust Dak Prescott. They tweeted about it. But yeah, concerning also on just the number of mediocre, crappy former Knicks that come into my life on slates like this, like Timmy Hardaway, like Alec Burks. God, I thought I had these guys out of my life once they left New York, and it's just not the case. They pop up on these.
Tim
DFS.
Hardaway Jr. will always be like the peak example of the Knicks ineptitude, because they literally traded a draft pick, I'm pretty sure, just to get rid of him. And then he started playing well in Atlanta, and then they traded a first-round pick to get him back.
To bring him back.
Like, that is just peak Knicks ineptitude at its finest.
Yeah, my New York Knickerbockers. Not the greatest run organization for the last, 3 decades or so. But hey, who's counting? At least they're fun to watch this year, right? Like every 5-6 years, they throw a team at us that's like, all right, at least they're fun. They're going to be a 7-8 seed and they're going to lose in the first round. But you got a little bit of enjoyment. You got a little tease of potential upside. And then
I give him credit for the Brunson signing, because
that was a great.
There were a lot of people like me who are like, man, I would not pay Jalen Brunson $25 million a year. And now that looks like a great contract, right? I mean, the guy is he probably won't be in all-star consideration, but he's pretty close. So the best Knicks point guard of my lifetime, right? And I'm not a spring chicken. I'm in my 30s. So
yeah, I'm in my mid 40s, so I got to see a little bit of our 90s and our 80s point guards. So maybe not there, but definitely the best point guard. And go figure, it's only the thing that everybody's been talking about with this Knicks team for the last 25, 30 years of we need a point guard. They got a point guard now. Actually, the team actually functioned. Like, go figure. Would have been nice if they had just drafted him in 2018 when he went 33rd overall. But hey, who could have seen that coming off of a national title? But let's look at the board. Anything changing 15 minutes into the slate? Anything emerging from these early starts?
So
anybody even tipped yet?
We did just get a tiny piece of news. It's news from me because I mentioned him. I have some of him in my lineup, but Romeo Langford has been ruled out.
Josh Richardson,
along with Josh Richardson for the Spurs. So I'm not really sure how that impacts their rotation, right? Maybe more minutes for, I don't even know, Malachi Branham. But yeah, clearly I can't play Romeo Langford since he is not in the lineup at this point. So
yeah, we know that much at least. We don't want to be doing that. Did we get Sohan was also questionable? Did we get a status update on him?
He is in, I believe. I'm pretty sure I saw he was in.
Okay.
Yes, available.
Maybe a little interesting. Reasonable 0.81 productive type player, 5,200 FanDuel, 4,800 DK. Any interest there? Does he hit the board at all for you now with that news and some changing just minute situation there?
Yeah, not really. I think his minutes are pretty
just going to be around that 28.
Yeah, he's their power forward. The other guys backcourt options. I don't see him really getting a bump from that. The real question again is just trying to figure out where these extra minutes are going to go. Maybe Trey Jones gets back up over 30 minutes tonight. He has kind of been down below 30 now the last 4 games. So maybe he sees a bump, but he's not somebody that I really want to get into my lineups. So I'm trying to see if maybe there's another cheap player that we can look towards, but I'm not really finding anybody at the moment.
Yeah, nobody leaping to mind. And this is another one of those teams. You look down the board. Just starting from the top. At the top of the board, we've got 3 players over a fantasy point per minute: Zach Collins, Trey Jones, Jakob Poeltl. Everybody else drops down below a fantasy point per minute. You get Keldon at 0.98, drops to Josh Richardson, who's not going. Sohan is 0.81. Then you've got a bunch of 0.7s, 0.6s. It's not the most appealing set of bench guys in the world here with Stanley Johnson, Malachi Branhams of the world. So not necessarily a spot I'm going to go nuts for here. I was getting to some Trey Jones. We mentioned him on FanDuel at 6,200. He was showing a little bit of bounce on the FanDuel slate in terms of our probabilities. So I've got him like 10%-ish. If I rerun things and get to a few more shares, I don't know if it's going to be totally worth it, but I might. That would be the only one that I would really expect any differentiation to be created from with this one. So that's interesting. Does that change any of the outlook on the Phoenix side of things? Does it increase any worry about a blowout or anything like that in your mind?
No, Phoenix should be happy that they're favored on the road, right? Like Phoenix should be happy to just be in contention at this point. I think as long as Devin Booker is sidelined, the blowout risk for them is going to be minimal. Now, granted, they did just blow out the Hornets a couple of nights ago, but that was in Phoenix. This game's in San Antonio. They're only favored by 5 points. So I would say minimal blowout risk here.
Yeah, and with this configuration of that team, I figure if we're getting that blowout, it's mostly coming from the guys that we're playing anyway, right? It's not like a lot of other, crazy scorers are going to come off the bench or anything. So let's take a look at the 15-minute mark there. Guys, just a reminder, we're brought to you, this extended little show that we're getting here is brought to you by PrizePicks. Great site. We talked about them before. Just one more time to reiterate. Free month of Stokastic plus Platinum and up to $100 deposit match bonus with your first deposit at PrizePicks. Great site to play on. Prop-based contests, not playing against sharks, not playing against optimizers, mass entries. Win up to 10 times your entry fee if you get all 5 of your props right. Simple as that. We've got free projections on the site to help you find those with win rates that you can sort by. Makes it really easy to put together a winning card over there. So make sure you're checking out PrizePicks. Great site to play on. Did you have a chance to check out the board for props over at PrizePicks today, Matt? I didn't actually get over there today, so I don't have anything.
I have not, but I can find one for sure.
Let's find one real quick. If you can pull
I'll tell you that I don't even need to look at the DeAndre Ayton number. I'm going to be betting DeAndre Ayton. Probably the points plus rebounds prop, I think, is going to be the way that I'm going to go. I think, just the usage is up. The matchup against the Spurs is really good. They're subpar defensively. They're also a pretty mediocre rebounding team. He had roughly 40 points plus rebounds in his last game. The current line on PrizePicks is 30.5. I think he can easily eclipse that figure here.
Okay. I like that one. And definitely a guy that, we seemed, both of us, I think we're excited to get to him in DFS. And it looks like a good matchup that's potentially even improving. I just jumped over to the PrizePicks NBA prop tool that we've got at Stokastic. So guys, if you're out there and you're looking for that, it's in the NBA menu. You drop down the NBA menu, go down to the bottom, second from the bottom, NBA player props and betting. Should be fairly easy to find with that description. It's the second one after you open that menu, PrizePicks NBA prop tool. Couldn't be easier to find. It's on the site. So I'm just sorting by win rate. That's how I look at these for these prop-based sites. And the top win rate, 69% expected win. Nice. To go under, Jeremy Grant on his rebounds. The line is set at 5 rebounds. We've got him projected, like I said, 69% to go under that. Do you like that one if you were playing over at PrizePicks?
Yeah, I mean, Toronto is definitely an under type of team, right? They play slow. They've got a lot of big dudes. They rebound relatively well. So that makes sense to me that would be grading out pretty favorably. I would imagine that his line is probably like 4.5 at other locations. So getting it up to 5 it seems like a nice boost. Yeah, I'm on board.
Yep, definitely. I think that one's on the table there. And you bring up a good point. A lot of times with these prop-based sites where you're putting together a card playing against the house or other ones where you're playing against the field, they leave some of these a little bit more margin than what you get from a traditional sports book. So it makes sense if you're shopping around for bets, also factor in what you're getting from a site like PrizePicks, where you can include these guys on upside cards at maybe a much better percentage than what you would get for it from a traditional sports book as just a straight prop bet or as a parlay bet and stringing together, certainly better odds than stringing together parlays the way those pay out. But let's look at one more here from that Dallas game. Spencer Dinwiddie on his threes over 2.5. What do you make of that?
I was just looking at that. I think over is a great number here.
Yeah.
I have him projected for over 3.5 3-pointers. So I think Dinwiddie should be looking at just a ton of shot volume tonight. The Jazz are a team that have actually defended the 3-point line pretty decently for the duration of the season, but they haven't been as great over like the past month or so. So I think Dinwiddie I'm kind of all in on all the Dinwiddie things. So it's kind of natural that I like over 2.5 threes.
Yeah, and I just think they're going to be chucking a lot of threes between him, Timmy, Reggie Bullock. We can't stop mentioning Reggie Bullock today for some reason, but I do think there's just going to be a lot of threes. And just looking at under normal circumstances, for Spencer Dinwiddie, 21.2% usage rate. We know that's going to go up. He's already taking 6.4 a game, making 2.6 a game, shooting 40% from three. So it's already basically there on just what he does under normal circumstances. I think with a big upside, we've got a lot of runway beyond this one. So that one was one that definitely stood out at PrizePicks for me. So there's a couple to start out your card on PrizePicks, guys. Use those three, find two more on the board, and go to town and win some money over at PrizePicks. Let's see, 9 minutes left in the show. See if there's any questions here. Too Smooth LP just dropped the word Kelly and the letter O into chat. I believe Kelly O is playing today. Was there any reason to go to Kelly O on the DFS sites? That's Kelly Olynyk.
No, I don't think so. Yeah,
it wasn't coming up for me.
Likely limited. I think that the bigger thing is just that he now kind of takes Walker Kessler off the board. Kessler is a guy that when he has been starting, he was a nice source of value for us. But now that Olynyk is back, he kind of becomes irrelevant again. So, Olynyk's coming off a good game in his last contest. He had 36 DraftKings points, but I'm not expecting that kind of production on a consistent basis. So I think he's not in my player pool. He's not somebody I gave a ton of consideration to.
Yeah, same here. And we've got him projected at 24.8 minutes. I think it might even be a little bit below that, what we actually get out of him here. So yeah, I'd just be a little bit concerned on the minutes there. And then just looking at this team, just in general, what do you think they're going to end up doing? It's kind of a logjam in the front court now, with Olynyk back and, Kessler obviously playing well and somebody that they're going to want to continue getting minutes for him. Is this just a spot where they're going to, in the next few weeks, probably just trade their way out of this logjam and we're going to get our pieces back as far as DFS goes?
If they can get anything for Kelly Olynyk, they should do it immediately.
Yeah, they'll take it right away, right?
I think Kelly Olynyk, not a very good basketball player. We like him in fantasy, right? Like he can do stuff in fantasy, but he's not the type of guy that's going to help you win ball games. So if I could get a second round pick for him, I would do it happily. But yeah, Kessler is clearly the future here. I expect his playing time to increase as the year goes on. And it's kind of funny that that's who they got after trading away Rudy Gobert. Like they went from Rudy Gobert to Rudy Gobert, but on a rookie contract.
Right. Yeah. Young, cheap Rudy Gobert. Yeah. Not too bad. Right. And potentially with the upside of, getting the extra screw job on Minnesota and getting at 1% in the lottery, the Wembanyama pick as well. That's the route that I see this going, right? They're going to come in with 1% odds, win the lotto and take that pick off the table too, and end up with Wembanyama from that deal as well, which would be absolutely ridiculous. That would put that on the table for worst trade of all time in the NBA. I mean,
honestly,
if that kid comes near
Wembanyama, I don't believe in the rigging the lottery conspiracy, but we cannot send that guy to Utah. Okay, please don't do it.
Agreed.
Send him somewhere where he will be, I don't know, viewed. Right?
A couple eyeballs on him. Yeah.
Yeah. Seriously, I'd love to see him in Detroit.
That'd be fun.
I kind of have always had a soft spot for Detroit. I have some family up there, but him plus Cade plus some of the other young guys that they have, I think would just be super intriguing.
Yeah, it would be fun. And, I just love, looking forward a couple of years, just the guys were talking about it on one of the shows the other day. And it's so, so true. Looking at some of the Orlandos, the Detroits, the OKCs of the world, and just the massive upside for some of these teams. It's going to be league changing in the next couple of years.
I sometimes forget that OKC has Chet Holmgren.
Right. Right. Exactly. It's holy shit, they're getting another massive piece coming in on top of whatever they get in this year's draft. So yeah, you just got to love the upside, and just the league in general is just so healthy and so deep and talented right now. It could easily support, expansion team out to Seattle and probably another location. I think just with the depth of talent we've got in the league right now, I love it. I think basketball's in a great spot.
Vegas. We need a Vegas team.
There you go. Seattle and Vegas. Drop them into the Western Conference, move Memphis to the East, and away we go. I love that. And Vegas is going to get a team. I think a lot of people say, the NBA can't go there, but the NHL went there. They proved that a sports franchise can work in that town. And I think the NBA goes there. That's a massive, major ticket
There's
every
going
single
to
night
be
of the season in Vegas.
There's going to be a baseball team there eventually too, right? Aren't the A's potentially moving there? I think is like the rumor.
Yeah, I think the A's are out of Oakland very, very soon. And that's going to probably be one of the prime landing spots. It makes sense. I mean, for a bunch of years there, they were one of the fastest growing cities in the country. And obviously
it's a great sports town.
It is. Yeah. It should be a lot of fun. And then, I mean, that first year with the Golden Knights, like Vegas came out for that team. I don't know how many of it was locals versus tourists or whatever it was, but they were coming out for that team and they got paid off. They were really, really good that first year with that run they went on. So I think that had a lot of to do with, creating the sports down there. So a lot of fun, but yeah, should be interesting to watch with all this talent coming into the league. Let's see what's going on with this slate. Any news on Edwards and Gobert that you spotted? Somebody just asked that in the chat. That's a good question.
I haven't seen anything. Looks like still the last news I had was Marcus Morris. So
yep.
Been a quiet little stretch here.
Yep, a little quiet. We did get the San Antonio news, which was minor-ish, but that's nothing yet on the Minnesota guys. So that's primed to screw up my evening for the next half hour after we jump off this in 3.5 minutes or so. That's an 8 o'clock start. So we should be getting that in the next little bit, gang, but hopefully Gobert and Edwards play. Let me see where I'm at on those guys, actually. That's an important question. All right. Actually, not a lot of Edwards in my life, surprisingly. Let me see where I ended up on Rudy. How much Edwards did you get to on this slate?
Like 20-ish%.
Okay. I think I knocked him down only slightly in my projection because I didn't want to get him overwhelmingly. And it looks like it just zeroed him out. It looks like it wiped him out across the board for me. So a little surprised by that. That's a little curveball for a guy that I was expecting to have in my life. Not that much Rudy, only 3 Rudy shares. So won't actually be too earth shattering if neither of those guys play for me, apparently. I will have to make pivots, of course. You always want to think of the full spectrum of what happens. We'll have to start creating opportunities to jam Nas into some lineups, though. So it'll definitely have an impact and definitely be worth rebuilding if we get that Minnesota news. Anything else that you've got on your radar that, known unknowns for these later games that you're like, oh shit, I got to sit around till 10 o'clock because X?
I mean, we didn't really talk about the fact that Nurkic and Josh Hart are questionable for Portland. That would be something that could kind of throw things into a little bit of a loop here, being the last game of the night by a full hour. We're not going to have a ton of opportunity to react to that, but other than that, I think I'm, knock on wood, I think we know most of what's happening here.
Yeah, hopefully, it's the unknown that might always trip us up. But I think as far as the known unknowns, there's nothing totally haywire. The only thing that could really screw some people out there up, I think, is that Minnesota piece. But hopefully we just get Gobert and Edwards in and everybody can go about their evenings, have a nice casual dinner. What's on your agenda tonight? What are you doing tonight?
So I'm on the clock until 10 o'clock doing the news desk over at DraftKings.
Okay.
So that's something. But then after that, it's my sister's birthday today. So
nice.
I got her and the family over. I'll have some dinner with them, and that'll be it. Excellent.
Very nice. Happy birthday to your sister. And Jacob's putting one finger up in the air. I'm not sure what that signal's supposed to mean. What are you trying to tell me, Jake?
1 minute.
Oh, 1 minute left? Oh, yeah, I don't sweat the end of the show. It's the beginning of the show that I worry about. I could talk all night here. These people will hang out.
I like Jake. He runs a tight ship, bro.
He does, right?
Out of here at 7:30 on the dot.
I've never had the light shine in my eyes. Hey, man, your 5-minute set is up. Let's go. Get off the stage, asshole. Let's go. All right. Jake wants us out of here. I didn't copy over the shows for tomorrow because I'm an idiot when I put the run sheet together. Let me pull that up. While I'm doing that, make sure one last time you guys are checking out PrizePicks. Make sure you go over to BetMGM as well. Take advantage of $1,000 of bet insurance. That's a great offer. There's just a lot going on and a few $100s of value in the free subscription, 2 months of Stokastic from them. So a couple great offers from our sponsors. Looking like tomorrow, Sunday, 12:30 to 12:55, NFL show for No House Advantage with Matt Savoca and Jeff Ulrich. 1 to 2, NFL Deeper Dive with Laffy, Alex, and Ben. 2 to 3, NFL Live Before Lock, Eric and Matt Kajeski. 6:30 to 7:30, NBA Live Before Lock, Josh and Eric. So Loaded day of content tomorrow. What do you like in the football games tomorrow?
I'm taking the chalk. I'm taking the Chiefs and the Eagles.
I would have gone the exact same way. I think that's going to be the way we go, and I think that's going to be a fun Super Bowl to watch. So I'm there for that one.
Either way, we should get a good game, right? Regardless of who wins tomorrow, we're going to get a good game, I think.
Yeah, it should be a good Super Bowl either way, or any one of the directions it goes. For me, this was a slog of a year as far as football goes, and especially the way it ended with the whole Hamlin thing and everything was just like the worst possible capper on a year of football that I was just like, oh God, these games are interminably bad. All those terrible Thursday games we had. So hopefully we get a killer NFC Championship, AFC Championship, and Super Bowl out of this one. But that brings us to the end of the show, gang. So check out all our sponsors, hit the like and the subscribe button, hit a few extra likes out there. We're deciding whether or not we keep this Jacob guy on board based on the number of likes. I don't know if anybody told him, but hit those likes, guys, because he seems like a good guy, put together a hell of a show. 272, get him over 300, gang. Come on, hit that like button for him out there. Matt, tell the people where to find you.
You can find me at Matt LaMarca on the old Twitter machine.
There we go. How'd you come up with that one? That's complex.
I went deep into the lab. I worked on some clever wordplay and eventually
some alternative handles off some friends. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, I decided on at Matt LaMarca.
Love it. All right, gang. That was Live Before Lock. I'm Terry McBride at DigitalB21 on the old Twitter machine, but I never tweet anything, so don't follow me. We'll see you later. Good luck tonight.